Okay, so ready to jump into another deep dive.
Always.
This time, we're going to tackle Olumba Obu,
Okay.
and specifically looking at how he gained his following.
Mm-hmm.
So how he amassed all these supporters.
Yeah.
Now, full disclosure, the source material for this one is pretty limited.
Okay.
And I actually think that makes this even more
I agree.
interesting.
Yeah.
Because it really forces us to grapple with how belief forms. You know,
Absolutely.
What makes someone compelling enough to attract?
Compelling and attractive to people.
Yeah. And attract such a following.
Totally. And I think the scarcity of sources kind of pushes us to be a little bit more
creative,
inquisitive, in our analysis, and really consider all the different historical and cultural influences that might have been at play in shaping how his movement grew.
So one quote that we came across really jumped out at me. And it said, "What did Olumba use to collect his gullible followers' brain that they set him as God?"
Wow.
I mean, it's
pretty charged.
It's very strongly worded, right?
Yeah, very strong word choice.
So how do we even begin to interpret something like that?
Well, I think you're right to point out that the language is really loaded, right?
Yeah.
Terms like gullible and collect.brain, those suggest a narrative of manipulation and exploitation.
Yeah.
And I think it raises some really interesting questions about the author's perspective and potential biases.
Yeah.
You know, were they a former follower?
Right.
Or were they just someone observing the movement from outside with a lot of skepticism?
Yeah. It's like reading a restaurant review.
Exactly.
And you have no idea if this person is like a Michelin star chef or someone who just microwaves frozen dinners every night.
Yeah. So how do we get past that potential for bias? You know, how do we actually understand the phenomenon of Olumba Obi?
Right.
I think one place we have to start is by thinking about the context of Nigeria at the time.
Yeah.
What were the social and political dynamics at play? Were there any specific events or circumstances that might have created fertile ground for this type of new religious movement?
Okay, so instead of getting caught up in whether the followers were gullible, right, like the author was implying, maybe we should be asking, what was it about Olumba Obu that drew people to him in the first place?
Yeah, what resonated with people?
Were there specific teachings, practices, anything like that?
Yeah, and even though our sources are limited, we do know that he emphasized love and universal brotherhood. He even established a universal embassy in his compound to really highlight this idea of unity and transcending traditional boundaries.
Yeah, I mean, it makes you think about you know, how throughout history, people have often turned to these charismatic leaders.
Absolutely.
In times of uncertainty or upheaval.
When things are changing a lot.
Right.
And there's kind of a need for something to hold on to.
Right. Was there anything unique, though, about his approach?
That's a great question. I mean, one thing that really stands out is his claim to be the embodiment of God.
Oh, wow.
Which is a pretty bold statement.
Yeah.
I mean, that would definitely resonate with some people and alienate others.
Right.
But this claim, coupled with his teachings and practices, really helped to create a following that believed in his unique spiritual authority.
So even though we don't have a ton to go off of, we can see how the historical context, the appeal of his message, and those unique claims all played a part in his rise.
I think that's a really good summary.
And this just scratches the surface.
Yeah.
But hopefully gives you some kind of framework for thinking about these new religious movements and how they develop.
I mean, think about other examples throughout history.
Yeah.
What common threads do you see?
Right.
How can these insights help you understand the beliefs and ideologies you encounter in the world today?
Yeah. That's something to think about.
Definitely.
Until the next deep dive.
See you then.